Hey everyone, welcome back to the Layback Podcast. Joining us today is right-handed pitcher Matt Swilley. Now, there's so much more to Matt than just calling him a right-handed pitcher. He's a father, he's a family man, he's lived a few lives in professional baseball thus far, and he still has a lot more to give this game. And before I spoil anything too much, I'm just going to kick it over to him, let him cover some of the highlights, and we'll get into it as always. So, Matt, thanks for joining us. Congrats on, I guess, the great parts to a slightly up and down season in Mexico. And I'm excited to talk about everything that we have before us.
Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate you having me. If I were to boil this thing down as brief as I can, I'll start with the fact that I was drafted in 2009. It's funny, when I tell people that, they kind of, 2009. I was a high school draft pick out of El Camino High School in Oceanside, California. I was drafted by the Tampa Bay Rays in the first round when they used to have like 40 rounds, and I was with them for almost 5 years. Two of the years I spent getting TJ and rehabbing TJ. I was released shortly after the TJ. It was kind of a rocky road even with them. I went through the yips. I had TJ. You'll find a common theme that if you've struggled with it, I've probably been through it in your baseball career. So yeah, got released, spent the next year, kind of did a gap year before gap years were cool with a pitching coach through in like a collegiate summer league. Velo started to really climb at that point. And then I played Indy ball after that in the American Association with a team called the Joplin Blasters that no longer exists. I spent that winter in Australia and then came back, hurt my arm in preseason with that same Joplin team. And then after I hurt my arm, went home to rehab it, met my now wife, quit baseball, started just working, wasn't sure what I was going to do. So I was working at Starbucks, waiting tables. I did that for a couple of years. Then I eventually started a business with a buddy of mine where we trained athletes. Around the same time, like a few years into it, he was hired by the Tigers. He's still with the Tigers as a coach. He's come full circle from pitching, and now he's a hitting coach for the high A team. And then I signed with the Padres after not playing for like 7 years. So that was a cool experience because that was the hometown team. Ended up getting a shoulder impingement. My 1-year contract expired. Thought I might be done again because the shoulder wasn't bouncing back. So I started coaching again. Arm started feeling good again, made another comeback. It's hard not to keep coming back when you see triple digits on the gun. You're just like, maybe one more shot. I bet I could piece it together. And then, ended up finding myself, a long story short, found myself in Mexico this year. Started off with the Diablos and then finished up in Querétaro with the Conspiradors. That's as brief as I can make it. Yeah, so I'm sure we'll dive more into it, though.
There are so many things that we can get into. I know there's some selfish conversations that I want to have on air just with some life experiences going on, but maybe we'll talk about the present, go in the past, bring it back to the future like any good movie does. Talking about the present, so finishing up in Mexico, let's talk a bit about this season that you had. You worked super hard to be in a place where you could compete in Mexico this year. I know seeing a lot of what you were posting on social media in the off season was looking for the right opportunity. So maybe we'll even start there. How does it feel to be in a position where you can say, I am looking for the right opportunity? What does that stuff mean to you? And why that specific wording? Because you see so many people in baseball, they're just looking for the chance. You obviously have had chances, but now it needs to be the right situation. So what does that look like for you, and how were you able to find it?
Yeah, well, I think part of it is the work that I've put in and the picture that I've kind of developed into. Probably the bigger part of looking for the right opportunity has to do with having a family. So you weigh the pros and cons and what is worth it for your family to be away from them. A lot of it and most of it actually has to do with, is whatever opportunity I'm given worth being away from the family? Because what it comes down to, as much as selfishly, like I want to chase the dream, I feel like it's right there in terms of me becoming the pitcher that I'm capable of being. It also has to do with financially, like providing for my family, getting to spend the right amount of time with them. There's just so many factors with that. Them being able to come visit me, does it set me up for another opportunity that's also going to benefit my family? So it's not necessarily just being single, or I would probably be able to just continue to play for the sake of just continuing to play. Whereas having the family, it's like I have to be selective in the opportunities that I take and make sure that there's a future in that. And it's funny to say, being 34 years old, like becoming the pitcher that I'm capable of being, and then also the future. But yeah, that's why I enjoy watching guys so much, like Verlander. He's still throwing 98 at 42 years old. It makes you see, like, hey, who's to say I can't do that? I always tell people too, and I love saying it, it's like you got guys that peak at like 20 years old, and then their careers are like 20 to 30. And then you got guys that peak like in their early 30s. Even like I know he's a great pitcher, and like physically he might not be peaking, but it all coming together is like the Padres having Nick Pivetta, like he's 32 and it's finally all starting to come together. And who knows how long he's going to pitch for. And I think there's too much of a, like, especially in the States, it's like, in the downsized roster, they're like, we got to have young guys. We're moving over to a youth movement. Okay, like I understand that, but life doesn't always work that way, where it's like in a neat little box where this guy's 18 years old and this is how he looks now. If you don't know what he's going to look like in 5 years, you know what I mean? So anyway, that's a little bit of a tangent, but I feel so strongly about that, being, 34 years old, feeling like I'm taking care of myself. Also the fortunate, God's given me great health and things like that. But yeah, so a little bit of a tangent there, but I do strongly believe in that.
No, that's fair. And you mentioned the comparison of the US versus what you're seeing in some of these other leagues. You've been fortunate enough to play a bit internationally, like you said, in Australia, in Mexico this past year, as well as some winter ball. And you look at those rosters and you will see one or two guys every year. Maybe they're surrounded by the low 20s guys or mid 20s prospect-esque players. And then you have your 38-year-old pitchers that's still the best dude on the staff and dominates every single time he goes out there.
It's funny, like I see guys, you get your guys that fall through the cracks in those leagues. Like there's a couple pitchers that I think right now could really help teams in the big leagues. One that pops off first into my head is Yacobonis for the Diablos. He's been in the big leagues, but you watch him right now and you're like, dude, this guy's a big league like bullpen guy right now. But like you see guys like that, and then they're just so much more concerned about, I mean, they have their flaws too and how they look for guys. Like I think sometimes they get wrapped up in like names and resumes, whereas like a little bit less of what have you done for me lately, until like they're actually on the team, then it's what have you done for me lately.
And like super lately.
Yeah, exactly.
What did
Exactly.
you do for me yesterday? And what can you do for me tomorrow?
Yeah, exactly. But they just want guys that are going to help them win games like right away. It's less of thinking down the road, and then it's like down the road will figure itself out. For the most part, I think that's a good way to live life. It's good to plan, but also there's only so far in advance you can plan and predict, and there's so many question marks. So yeah, there's each have their pros and cons. Like I think like in Mexico, like they're a little too old school. I see like guys bunting in really weird situations. And I'm like, what are you guys doing? It's just good to have the balance, to have that balance. Whereas, like in the States, I think sometimes, like, obviously they're looking so much to the future, but guys forget the little intricacies of how to play the game or what to look for in a good pitcher or a prospect. Like, sometimes there are things that you can't necessarily measure, or there's an eye test. I think there's a combination of the eye test and then also what the stats, metrics, and analytics say as well. Like, that balance.
I think you set us up for probably a pretty unique question. It's the Billy Bean Moneyball question, at least from the movie, not necessarily the book, but from the movie, where they say, would you have drafted yourself? So now all these things that you consider what you just talked about, taking that back to you as an 18-year-old leaving high school, getting popped in the first round, what valuation now looking back would you have put on yourself?
That's a good question. Small tidbit, my scout that drafted me actually was in the movie as an extra
Oh, no way.
in Moneyball. Yeah. He was in Moneyball, the movie. But would I have drafted myself? I think back then, yes, just because of the amount of rounds there were. So you could kind of take flyers on guys. Because I mean, now it would be hard to like draft me because I think I only pitched like 11 or 12 innings my senior year in high school when I was drafted. I did most of my pitching and I saw most of my recognition as like like I'd go throw in a scout ball game, and it was like I'd throw one inning in a scout ball game, and then there'd be all these scouts there. So I kind of gained my recognition that way. Whereas in season, like I think I made like 2.5 starts. I say a half start because I think I left one of them early because, of course, I had a back injury even in high school. But yeah, I think I had like 2.5 starts, and then that was it. And so I think it would be hard to say, oh yeah, you could draft me, but I definitely could see the upside because there was a lot of athleticism there. Like I was a leadoff starting center fielder. I was really good in center field. Gold glove caliber for sure. But yeah, so I would say I probably wouldn't now, but I always talk about it too. Like we didn't have all of the facilities. Man, if I had facilities back then, like you should have seen how awful I moved when I was in high school, and I was still like anywhere from 90 to 94, which back then was
Absolute fuzz.
yeah.
In 2009.
I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I was like jumping off the mound, like really slow tempo. And if you look at how far I've come, it's really cool to see all the changes that I've made from then to now. But yeah, so short answer would be I probably couldn't justify drafting myself in the 20 round draft now, but there's a lot of other factors that come into play.
And I guess if you even remember back then, did you have a college commitment at that time that you were deciding on, or was it just like, yes, thank you, no more school, I'm done, let's go?
No, what's funny is, so I had offers. I said no to a lot of schools. My reasoning was I wanted to go is so silly. I wanted to go to a school that had like a football team. And a lot of the teams in California, like UC Irvine, no football team, Fullerton, no football team. Like I wanted to go to a big school with like a football team. So I was waiting for UCLA to make me an offer, but by the time I came onto the scene, because I was so late onto the scene, they didn't have any money left. It was all wrapped up in guys, but they knew they were going to get guys drafted. They're like, hey, once money opens up, we'll have something to offer you. So I was kind of waiting for that. Actually, when I got the phone call in the 21st round from the Rays, I said, thanks, but no thanks. I think I'm going to go to college. So having the draft around the time of like the College World Series is a bad time to do it because I was like, I want to be a part of that. I want to do that. And I was very much like, I think I want to go to college. And they ended up calling me back like a few minutes later and they're like, congrats, we took you with our 21st selection. And I was like, but I said no. And they're like, yeah, we think we could work something out. And they knew something I didn't know, and because they ended up working something out. Everyone always asks me, hey, do you like regret not going to college? And I don't regret it at all because baseball is what I wanted to do. And I think it set me up in the long run of what I wanted to do, because even when I'm done playing, like I really have a passion for coaching as well. So that kind of sets me up. I essentially have my master's in baseball. I didn't waste all my time with the nonsense general education classes and whatnot. Actually, I took a few online, but other than that, didn't waste much time with that.
You're not giving yourself enough credit saying you have a master's. You have a PhD at this point with all the school you've done in baseball. You have certainly done enough study abroads and focus groups and seminars and all that kind of stuff with everywhere you've been and everything you've seen. Now, we won't spend too much time in the past, but given the nature of what we talk about on here, with this being such a community for Tommy John, UCL, medial elbow injuries, I'd love if you could at least touch on your experience with the injury a little bit, how it came about, and I guess what rehab looked like all the way back then.
Yeah, so I got my surgery in July. No, yes, July of Actually, I think it was July 19th even. I didn't even remember the day. July 19th, 2012 is when I got the surgery.
So
And
you were 3 years in already to pro
yes,
ball at that point.
so it happened yeah, I
Two and a
signed,
half
yeah,
ish.
I signed
Yeah.
really late in 2009. But yes, it was after like my most innings pitched I had. And then in the off season is actually when it happened.
Mm,
And looking back on it, I think it had a lot to do with because even back then, the throwing programs and the buildup, I think it was just I went full intent before I prepped my arm enough. And I think that's when I initially injured it. But in terms of like the rehab back then, I think, I mean, it was super cookie cutter. That being said, like, whatever, I mean, the surgeon did a great job because I haven't had any issues with my elbow since, I got the surgery in 2012. Any issues that I have had have been a little bit like shoulder impingements or things like that, or even maybe a little bit of tricep, but no elbow stuff. So I guess looking from it from a long-term perspective, they did a great job. How much of it was due to like the rehab process? I don't know. Like that being said, I looking back on it because as a coach, like I've worked with some guys coming back from TJ, and I think monitoring workload is obviously like a really big thing coming back from it. One of the biggest things I see is it used to be, and I see more and more people talking about it as well. The rehabs were like, hey, like we're going to start from 45 feet and then we're going to go to 60 feet. And so we would work our way back distance wise, but there was no like radar gun on us.
right.
So I could put air under it and be the same effort from 20 feet as I could be from like 60 feet. I was putting no more stress on the ligament. And it's funny, just rehabbing, I even remember rehabbing my shoulder impingement. I didn't have a radar gun accessible for a while, so I was just playing catch. And I was like, man, I'm starting to feel good. Like, let's get in front of a radar gun. And I remember throwing, and like I thought I was putting a little something on it, and I was throwing like 70 something miles an hour. And I was like, holy cow, like I got to start throwing in front of a radar gun because I thought I was starting to feel good, and I'm still like way farther away than I thought. So I think that was probably the biggest eye-opening thing in terms of like rehab is when I was rehabbing with guys coming back from TJ, we monitored workload using I'm blanking on the chip that you put on your elbow.
The pulse.
The pulse. It wasn't called pulse back then, but yes.
Modus. You had Modus
Yes.
back then, yeah.
Yeah. We used Modus, we used radar gun, and we used to monitor workload pretty precisely just to make sure like guys weren't doing too much. But I think being able to have like tools like that super useful in terms of coming back from the rehab. But yeah,
For sure. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you taking a quick stop on that train. We just had to cover it because that is so much of what we talk about here. But obviously, or I don't want to say obviously, because I know you said it was kind of a long rehab to an extent. I don't know if it was tumultuous. You said you've felt good ever since, but ultimately you got released after your return, correct? So how much time did you even have after being cleared and healthy and back in games?
from TJ with the
Yes.
Rays, I think I threw in like 3, maybe 4 rehab outings. I think what scared them partially was I had the yips before that, and then I kind of got over it. Had a really good year. Was my first time moving into the bullpen because I was a starter, moved to the bullpen. They're like, I went on the Phantom because I had the yips, came back, was in the bullpen. Yeah, had a really good year. Then I hurt my arm. And then after hurting my arm, as I was rehabbing, it started to act up again, the yips. And I think that kind of freaked him out a little bit. I already kind of fell behind with the TJ and everything because I was still super young. And even in my rehab outings, I was 94, 95, maybe touching 6, like as like a 20-year old, like coming back from TJ. So, there was a lot to like, but I think that probably scared them away. But yeah, it definitely lasted. I had a couple setbacks here and there, but yeah, I think I had 3 outings and then I was released and then I took that gap year that I talked about earlier. But that was pretty much it.
If you can reflect on it, how do you think the yips kind of took over for you? I know it's funky for a lot of people to talk about, but I have to imagine at your level now as a 34-year-old and significantly greater problems in this world, i.e., raising a family while
Yeah.
pursuing a professional career, talking about where you're throwing the ball is probably like, nah, whatever, that's fine. That's
Uh,
much easier to talk about than politics. Like, how did it like encroach on your life? I'm just so fascinated about the mental side, the mechanical side of it, and then how you feel you remedied the situation.
yeah. So how I remedied it, I mean, I'll get to that, but it's funny. I probably couldn't exactly pinpoint it. How it began, and looking back on it in hindsight, I think it's really just like anxiety. I think it's the like uncertainty. It's like something happens where your trust just breaks down. I remember exactly how it happened. It sounds like a ridiculous story, but I'll share it because it was so long ago. And I was so young, but I remember I worked out really hard, upper body, like right before like catch play bullpen, right before we were breaking extended spring training to go to our affiliates. You ever have that pump feeling where you could barely grip anything?
Yes.
I had that feeling, and I was holding on to a baseball, and uh, I was like, "Dang, I have no feel right now. I'm playing catch with my partner, and it is not going well." And the whole time, I have like probably the most intimidating pitching coach in the whole organization. Like this guy's got the resume. Like he's not afraid to. He's the only coach I've ever just had chew me out. Like that being said, like I ended up like really appreciating him in the long run, loved him as a coach, and he had a crazy resume. But he was watching me, and he ended up just like chewing me out like for my catch play. And of course I had a bullpen after that. And I just had no feel for where the ball was going. It got to the point he was so frustrated, he just like called it, like cut my bullpen short. And it's funny, I didn't think about it for days because we had the travel over to our affiliate. Didn't think about it for days. And then all of a sudden, it's like first day of catch, change of scenery. I pick up the ball to go play catch with somebody. And it's like all my trust in my years and years of playing catch and throwing just out the window. And I could not like play catch with my partner. And it's funny, like I had like maybe 2 or 3 starts that way, and somehow I grinded my way through it with the help of that same coach. He was my affiliate, like pitching coach at that time. His name was Marty Demerit, by the way. We called him Dog. I'm so thankful for him as a pitching coach. But yeah, like I remember I would like strike out 8, like walk 6 guys in like 4 innings. And it's funny, like it was a matter of just time and trust in rebuilding that trust of playing catch. And when I threw it, it was going to go where I wanted it to. And I had a pitching coach here that worked with me through it, and he was just like, hey, just let it go, like I don't care where it goes. And having that safe environment, I think. And then I also realized like, hey, like I also kind of have anxiety issues off the field, so helping with the overall like chemical balance, getting on the right medication in general, I think just kind of helped me on the field, as well as realizing, hey, I got some stuff off the field that I didn't even realize I had until I started boiling it down and talking about it. So definitely an interesting situation. And I've dealt with a lot of other guys. I feel like guys go through it. Everybody has like some form of it, maybe like once in their career. Like if you talk to guys, they're like, oh yeah, I've been through, I had, one form of it or another like throughout my career. It's pretty crazy.
That's quite the vehicle, though, for you to figure out that something like yips within the game was somewhat linked possibly to other things going on in life outside in the real world.
Yeah.
And I mean, props to you for getting it taken care of, whether it's talking to someone about it or medication. The first step is admitting it. So I mean,
Oh,
that's huge.
yeah. It was easy to admit it. It kind of hit me in the face, but
Yeah,
yeah.
when you saw
Yeah.
it.
Well, it hit me in the face, and then it got to a point where it was like, all right, I need to address this. So I think life kind of forced my hand on that. But yeah, no, it's definitely been a thorn in my side, but has also taught me a lot, I think, over the years. And then being able to prioritize things and like you said, like having the family now and then talking about the yips. That being said, like when you're in a season and like you're so engulfed in it that it is easy to get lost in perspective of things in the moment of when you're in season, and then realizing, hey, like the priority of me even being here isn't, for the sake of playing. It's like, I have other priorities like my family and my faith that take priority over this, and being able to prioritize that helps put into perspective like it's just a game. It's easy to say, hard to do. I've learned that for sure.
Assessing magnitudes of situations are incredibly difficult when you are in the situation. Of
Yes.
course, you can sit on your couch now, 2 weeks or whatever removed from the LMB season,
Yes.
and evaluate what was important, what wasn't, what actually impacted you and what didn't.
Yes.
Versus if you were on the bus right now to the stadium, the
Yeah.
music being turned up too loud could impact your day or
Yeah.
something like that. It's crazy to think how simple of things can weigh so heavy when you are in it.
Yeah. It is crazy. There's a man, I'm about to butcher this, so this might be one of those editing parts, but
We'll see.
no, I mean it's everyone's probably heard of him. It's like a story of like a book by C.S. Lewis called Mere Christianity. He talks about like good people, like bad people don't realize that they're bad. It's like good people realize how bad they are because they're trying to be good. The same way like a drunk person doesn't realize how drunk they are while they're drunk. It's kind of like that same thing. It's like when you're in it, you don't realize like that you're in it, like or you're unable to put a correct perspective on it when you're in it because you're so like this is your life right now, So it's really easy to get lost in things like that, and it's really important to think like long in situations like that. It's important to reflect on the past, be like, all right, I've gotten through similar things like this, and then to look to the future and be like, hey, like there's a lot more important things. This is what goals I have in life. It's not like these little silly things that I got going on right now, if that makes
What
sense.
are Yeah, yeah. So what are ways that you step away or reset or take those moments? Like how do you enter that place where you can take the time of reflection?
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, at the risk of turning your podcast into a sermon, I mean, I pray and I, read, I get into the word, and it helps me put things into perspective and things that are really important. And then when I talk about like thinking about the future, like putting perspective like of life in eternal perspective as opposed to the 70 or 80 years that I have here really helps me put these 70 to 80 years, God willing, that I have in this life, thinking about that eternal perspective helps me, really put into perspective and boil down what's important to do right here, right now. Because most of those things aren't going to matter in 500 years or whatever, however you think about it, if that makes sense.
I guess where I'm headed with this question, so
Yeah.
of course I want you to share everything that's important to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I guess it's like, when are you doing this? Is it as simple as
Ah,
like you're getting ready for the shower? Is
ah,
it like every night before you go to bed? Because like I am a huge proponent of anybody should do anything that they believe in wholeheartedly. And I know how entrenched you are in your faith and how much it means to you. But
yeah.
then obviously you need to make time for these things. So it's not just saying like I pray. So like
Yeah.
when are you able to do these things when you also have to think about facing Robinson Cano?
Yeah. So I would say when I do that, well, the beauty of it is I kind of do it just throughout the day when I'm going well. So when I'm getting caught up in things that aren't important in life and I'm not going well, I would say I do it less, and I could go a whole day and then I lay down at night and I'm like, man, I don't think I talked to God once today, or I didn't pray. And it's like when I'm going well, it's just throughout my day. You hear about like people say, oh, like you're able to walk through this life with God. And I think that's kind of how I do it. Like he's always in my mind, in my thoughts when I'm in a good spot. And I really notice the difference about the peace, the perspective, and then how I'm able to have relationships and speak to others, care for them, not try to, see what I can get from other people, but really care about them first and foremost. I'm able to be loving towards others when I realize how much, God loved me first. And I would say, yeah, it's no one specific time when I'm going well. It's just throughout my day. It's even, at times on the mound, quick reflections or, quick prayers. And when I'm not going well, like I'm trying to do things on my own, and I've done that throughout my life plenty of times, and things don't go very well for me when I'm trying to do things on my own. I have a good track record of not doing things very well when I choose to do them my way. So yeah, I would say the short answer would be just, more frequently when I'm going well and not very often when I'm not going well, if that makes sense.
I appreciate you opening up on that
Yeah,
because
for sure.
everyone has their own process, and I do think that's valuable to at least understand your insight and how it guides you through your life for sure. And now, kind of like re-anchoring to this timeline that we're working through as well, I want to go back now to this period without baseball, I guess. Or, I mean, before we even get to that, we had your gap year. We had the battles through Indy ball, going
Yeah.
and playing in Joplin. I'm assuming Joplin, Missouri.
Joplin, Missouri, yes.
Okay, yeah. So playing in Joplin, Missouri, and was that the American Association at the time?
Yeah, it was the American Association.
All right, and I mean, great league when it comes to the Indy ball side of things in the States. I mean, that's basically as high as you can get for American Indy ball.
Yeah.
And how were you playing at the time? How'd you feel about your game? Taking that gap year per se, training with someone, playing in some like low pressure outings, and then moving into pro ball again.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you say low pressure outings because I didn't feel that way when I was in it. It's like one of those things like you think, oh, I'm in indie ball, like I could take a step back, but pressure is always like what you put on yourself. And I've always done a good job of being able to put a lot of pressure on myself.
Well, then let me clarify real quick. I by no means mean that the American Association is low pressure. I more mean when you said you threw in some of those college summer ball
Gotcha,
outings.
gotcha. Yeah.
That's what I tried to say was
Okay.
low pressure. If you think that was high pressure, then maybe we should
Okay,
re-anchor this anxiety
yeah.
discussion after you like made it up to high A or double A or whatever as a 22-year-old. But hopefully those were low pressure. But
Yes.
the American Association, on the other hand, no, that's high pressure.
Yeah, no, so the gap year was awesome. And it was cool because I was able to throw in like these collegiate summer league games and work on stuff. Whereas like now you see guys taking gap years and they're in a facility. We're going through our velo phase and whatnot. So it was cool to be able to compete. And then I was feeling really good about myself during that time because that's when I kind of had my biggest leap in terms of like velocity during the gap year. It was the first time I was like 95 to 98, and I was like, dude, like, why am I not getting signed? I'm still young. And then I got to the point where it's like, all right, I just got to go play somewhere. And then that's when I went to Joplin. And when I was in Joplin, it was, I was the rookie, and I was like, dude, I just spent like 5 years in extended spring training. Like I felt like I paid my dues, and now I'm just like a rookie again. Like holy cow. Like granted, there were a lot of older guys on the team. We had former big leaguers and stuff. So looking back on it, it's like, yeah, I was a rookie. But I was still stuck in between that like starter reliever role, which was like really frustrating. It's really difficult to go back and forth, back and forth. But I mean, that was the first time I was up to 100, like 99, 100. But during that time, you could still get lost in the shuffle in indie ball because you didn't have, TrackMan data for guys to go look at. Like they had to be there to see you or have the word of mouth. And then they look at the stats, and it would be like the ERA or whatever. Back then, they cared about ERA. The ERA looks good, strikeouts are good, but the walks are a little high. And it's like I would always have stints during my starts where I'd have a blow up game, and it's like I'd walk the house and then my walks would blow up. So it was a little frustrating, but it was only 3 guys in Joplin that made it start to finish, and it was me, our setup guy, and our closer. Everybody else got either released or hurt. The amount of like transactions were insane. The only guys, I should rephrase that, the only pitchers that made it from start to finish. So that was an accomplishment in itself. And then I did have a lot of interest. And then when I went to go play winter ball in Australia, it was actually through the interest of a Rangers scout, because the manager of the team was a coach in the Rangers organization. So I went to go play for them. And then when I came back to Joplin, the manager and the owners, like, we've had a lot of teams like reaching out about you. We think you have a couple good outings and you're out of here. So I was super encouraged at the time. And then, of course, the day before opening day, my shoulder had been bothering me. It got to the point, it's like, I got to say something, because I was going to pitch that night. I don't think I could pitch. And then that's when I ended up going home, and then going home to rehab. And like I said, that's when I met my wife and kind of just put baseball on hold. To sum up that gap year and that Indy ball year, I guess that'd be the best way to do it.
Okay. And now we may have entered the time of the conversation where I get really selfish.
Yes.
And that is for the audience. The reason for this, I think most of you who have stuck with us through the process and are consistent listeners know that I have a baby on the way. At the time of this interview, we are 10 days prior to due date, but she could come at any time now. I'm having a baby girl. Swilley here is a girl dad himself, times a couple. He's surrounded by females in his household, and a lot of what I wanted to talk to him about, besides him telling his story and his illustrious career in baseball thus far, hoping that there's a movie about it soon enough when he gets that show call one day, but is how he has managed life as well as his pursuits for his passion. He obviously went home. We got to this point, and this is what I really wanted to get into. He separated from, as far as I can see on the outside without living it, he made this separation from baseball and really started to pursue other things in life, development of his family, meeting his wife, having kids. So now I'm so interested in what happens from here. What was the shift? Was there an identity thing for you? Or what ultimately was the reason that you took the step away to focus on family at that time?
Yeah. Well, first of all, big congrats, brother. I didn't realize 10 days away.
Oh yeah, we're right here.
Let's go, man.
Thank you.
Super exciting. All right, yeah. So this is a good time for this interview then. Hopefully I can give you some wisdom. I could definitely tell you a lot of things not to do.
That's good. That's good as well.
Yeah, I paid a lot of, I like to call it dumb tax for you. So hopefully you don't have to pay it. I figured out a lot of things not to do. Still figuring out a lot of things to do. Doing my best through it. You're never ready for it. I just think that, so like I said, I went home and that's when I met my wife, and you have a lot of downtime rehabbing. Obviously I told you about the time rehabbing the TJ. Then when I went home to rehab the shoulder, you have a lot of downtime, and it's kind of a lot of alone time too. And you have a lot of time to reflect, as well as, like, you're an athlete, you're not playing what you've done your whole life. So it can be a little depressing at times. And then you start to really reflect on like what's important to you. And when I met my wife, like, it was sparks right away, mainly for her. No, I'm just kidding. For both of us.
That's staying in.
Yeah. It was going to be, do I leave? I think at the time I was 25, 26. And it's like, what's important to me? I always just assumed that I wanted a family before I met my wife. I didn't even have a girlfriend. And it's like, I want a family, but when is this going to happen? We were just together. And then I got to a point where I was just like, I chose to pursue the relationship instead of baseball. And people always ask me, oh, do you regret that? And I always joke with my wife. I'm like, I'd probably be in the big leagues right now, like, if it wasn't. She goes, don't say that. Like, you think so? I was like, yeah, probably.
And now she goes to therapy for that, right?
Yeah. But yeah, it's funny because it ended up being both the best thing in terms of enjoyment, but also in terms of probably just growth. I don't know how I would be or who I would be had I just stayed in baseball because it's a very it's less so an indie ball, but it's still a very like sheltered lifestyle. And I talk to guys now who are in their 30s and or even almost 40. All they've done is baseball their whole lives, and there's a lot like having that life experience outside of baseball helped me develop different skills and perspective on things, I think, that I'm really truly grateful for. Even when I was waiting tables, like holy cow, like be nice to your waiters and your baristas at Starbucks, because I did both of those things, and people can be brutal, and just learning the life skills that came along with that. But I think having that perspective of outside of baseball and then diving back into baseball, it's funny because before it was a very selfish mindset, especially when you're first thrusted into pro ball. It's like, all right, what can I do to advance my career? The career and yourself is primarily all you think about, which it's definitely not the best way to think about things. And it probably led to a lot of the anxiety that I had and a lot of the issues that I had playing wise with the yips and whatnot, because I made baseball more than what it was. But yeah, now, yes, the identity shift. It's like now when I go anywhere, it's like it's always in the back of my head. It's like I'm a father and I'm a husband first and foremost. And it's like I represent my family whenever I come into contact with anybody, teammates, how I carry myself on the field. Like it's like I represent my family. And yeah, those are big things in terms of like an identity shift, I guess. And then in terms of how to manage that I would say the biggest thing in terms of being able to manage the family life and having to be away and pursuing your dreams is to have a very supportive wife because she's doing a lot of the heavy lifting when you're not there, and it makes you appreciate and treasure the moments that you do and the time that you do have with your family. So whether that be, scheduling the FaceTime calls, thank God for FaceTime, and just always whenever you are in contact with your kids and whenever they're seeing you do certain things to make sure that you're setting those good examples, and because the kids imitate everything and anything that you do. I always tell people this because it was the best advice that I ever heard: to be a good father to your kids, the best way that you can go about doing that is to be a good husband. Like putting your wife first. Like you're never going to, later on in life, your kids are always going to reflect on the fact of how well you treated your wife. And it's going to impact them and affect them in so many ways down the road that you don't even realize. But that's probably the most, and you don't think about it because, and a lot of people tend to put their kids first, and it's not the right way to do it, especially in our culture today for whatever reason. Like we put our kids first, and then a lot of parents or husbands and wives get lost in being parents first, and then they kind of like lose the relationship aspect. And it's really important to nurture that first, and then the kids, like as much as you love them, but the kids are second. Like on the totem pole it goes spouse and then kids, and it's best for them because the relationship that you have with your kids obviously is for the rest of your life, but the relationship that you have with your spouses, you guys are bound together for the rest of your lives. And the kids eventually are going to go off, but that relationship that you have with your spouse is first and foremost, like most important, and it's most important in your kid's life. So yeah, when I'm home, it's funny, I always go through like a honeymoon phase when I'm first home, and it's like I just treasure everything. And then it's like a week passes, and then the whining starts to creep in with like I got toddlers now, and like they start whining, and it's like, all right, like you guys whine kind of a lot, like we got to work on that. But yeah, no, I think perspective, like identity, perspective, and how that impacts like baseball and stuff, like all of that, like really ties together for sure. There's definitely a lot to tackle in that for sure. And it's something, if there's things that I'm passionate about and long-winded about, it's my faith and my family and baseball. Like if there's three things that I can go on and on about, it's probably those three things. I don't have too many hobbies outside of those two.
You
Yeah.
don't have time for hobbies at this point.
Yeah, honestly, I don't really have much time for hobbies.
Also, in this process, you mentioned it way earlier, you were starting the business with your buddy. I know
Yeah,
we highlighted it quickly, but
yes,
coming off of this hiatus from pro ball, how
yeah.
long did it take you to start to get that itch to start training guys or coaching? And maybe how long were you back home as well?
Yeah, so it's funny. I did like little lessons here and there with some younger kids, and I just did, and like a lot of people do, I just did what like my pitching coach did with me. This is what how I was taught. This is how I taught, and then I met. Actually, first I went to Driveline. I didn't leave. I didn't. I went to Driveline because I was super interested in like motion capture because I when I was younger I would like think about like mechanics a lot and how it affected like velocity and like the throw and control, and it's like I want to get a motion capture because I feel like I'm throwing darts to a dartboard and I at least want that dartboard not to be so big. Like I want to narrow things down a little bit, and I went pretty much primarily for the motion capture. Oh yeah, I forgot to I left this part out. This was like after I threw in like a men's league game. Like
Okay. So
my buddy,
you just
yeah,
like, I'm gonna pick up a baseball again and we're gonna see where we're at.
my buddies talked me into playing men's league. I was like shortstop, super. It was super fun. And then they're like, "Hey, like, can you pitch?" And I was like, "Like, I'll throw an inning. Like, I'll close if you need to." Picked up a baseball. Was still like 94, 95 after zero training in like 9 a.m. like men's league game. I was like, dude, like maybe there's something to this. And then that kind of led into the going to Driveline, checking out the motion capture, seeing like kind of where I could take it. When I was out there with the motion capture, they're like, "What team do you play for? Like, what organization are you with?" I was like, "I'm not with an organization like men's league," and they're just like, "Really?" They're like, "You could throw in our pro day," and I was like, "There's a pro day? Like, sure, I'll throw in your pro day."
What year was this, by the
This
way?
was 2019. So I threw, it was January 2020.
And you threw in the pro day.
When I,
Wonderful.
yes, when I threw in the pro day and I was starting to make that comeback. And then, of course, right around that time, COVID hit
Yep.
after, and then baseball got shut down. And I was like, all right, I guess I'm done again.
Back
Like,
to the lab. Yeah.
yeah, like at that point, I was like, no one's playing. I gave it a go. COVID hit, so I'm probably pretty much done. And then that's when I came home and I met my buddy. There was somebody out there at Driveline, and I was talking to him. He's from my area, and I was like, "Hey, like, where could I go to like continue like some of the stuff that we do here? Like, I don't know of any places back home in the San Diego area." And he was just like, "My high school coach," and I was like, "Your high school coach?" Like, he's like, "Yeah, just hit him up." So it's funny. I hit him up when I got back, and I was like, you have like radar gun LED board? He's like, yeah, just come. I got everything. So it's funny, like I go there. It was at the high school field, and I start throwing. He's got like a sweet setup. He's got the plyo walls. This is way before all of this stuff got really, really big. Now there's a ton of places in this area. But he had all the plyo walls, just anything you could think of. I started throwing my bullpen. Dude's flying a drone over my head, like getting like footage from overhead. I was like, who is this guy? But yeah, like I kept going there, kept training, getting ready for the pro day when I got home from Driveline. And we just ended up kind of becoming friends. And then once I stopped throwing because of COVID, we kind of around this time during COVID, so he was hired by the Royals as like in between guy for the analytics and the coaching side. He was kind of like the mediator. It was a new position.
Like the original player development roles.
Yes, exactly. It was a new role at the time. And then when COVID hit, because he was a new hire, first guys to go were those guys. So he was coming back home and he was like, dude, you want to get started on something? And that's kind of how the ball got rolling with training guys. He had somewhat of a clientele already because he was a high school coach before that in the area. And two of them actually are in pro ball now and we're very high draft picks. That's how it kind of started when we started training guys. And we did that. We bounced around spots for a couple of years. We rented space out of like this gym where the other half of the gym was like just badminton courts. Like, so it was badminton and then us and like a gym. We rented that out for a while. Then we went to another spot, which was like a kid's batting cage, but we rented out space there. And then eventually we kind of just started working out of the high school because we had access and he was coaching and we were able to. And right around that time is when I started throwing again. And then he got that other job offer from the Tigers, which he's still with the Tigers. So, but yeah, that's kind of how that went about between me trying to make a comeback. It's funny though, what gave me the itch to start throwing again was actually due to my old scout that signed me when I was out of high school. We still keep in touch. Great guy. I just consider him a friend now. We keep in touch when we can, but he reached out to me after the pro day with Driveline because he was there. And he was like, hey man, like, I've been thinking about you a lot, had meetings with the scouting department and player development, and like you keep popping into my head because you definitely fit the mold of like the type of pitchers that they're talking about and we're looking for. Are you still throwing? And at the time, it was funny. It was on during my 30th birthday, I was in quarantine for COVID while he's texting me, and I was like, well, I'm not, but I can throw again. And because I had access to everything, because we were in a facility we were at that badminton facility at that time. And that's when I just slowly started to incorporate the things that I had learned and start my own throwing program and started to build back up again. And then I just kept him updated throughout the process of when I was throwing. And eventually, I got to a point when I was feeling really good. I was in bullpens. I was consistently 96, 97. And then I was like, all right, let's get into a game. Got into a game and nobody was supposed to be there. It was in Palm Springs. It's 2 hours away from me. Went to a game in Palm Springs, collegiate summer league game. No one's supposed to be there. There ended up being a Rangers scout there to scout the starting pitcher for that team. I threw one inning. I was 97 to 99, struck out the side. And after the game, the Rangers guy's like, who are you? Reached out to me. That's kind of when the ball started rolling for me getting looks in terms of signing again. And I just threw bullpen after bullpen. The Rangers flew me out to throw in their pre-draft showcase where I was throwing with a bunch of college and high school kids, and they're calling me the rookie. And then a few months down the road during the off season is actually when I signed with the Padres, and actually how I met you. So yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we got to the Padres point of the podcast, and that really just had to be so cool, such a surreal moment to get a contract from the local team. I'm sure that's who you were a fan of growing up, knowing you're a San Diego guy. What did that feel like? Forget about baseball for a moment. On the human side, what was that like?
I was just really excited. It seemed like at the time, having been separated from baseball for so long and being so close and not signing with so many teams, during that time, it was pretty surreal. And it felt like, wow, this happened. Anything could happen. Originally, talked about being assigned to Double A. It's if I pitch good there, a couple months down the road, who knows? I could be in the big leagues. And I just remember all these thoughts going through my head. Maybe got a little too ahead of myself, but it was super cool because during that time away from playing baseball, I kind of regained a little bit of my fandom with watching baseball again. Because when you're playing, you don't watch as much. But I started to regain that fandom and that appreciation again, and then to also dive back into playing again while being a fan. It was just super cool. And I try to nurture and keep as much as that fandom still as I can in terms of watching baseball and just enjoying it, because you kind of become a little bit jaded about it and the business side of things and the politics of it all, when you're playing. But just to kind of keep that perspective is a cool perspective. But it was unreal and definitely a surreal moment, when I signed with the Padres for sure.
And you were eventually assigned to Lake Elsinore. So not Double-A, but you were a little bit down the road. Were you able to live at home or commute, or what did that look like for you?
So I commuted home as much as I could. There was off days every Monday. So after Sunday games, I would go home and then spend the night, come back on Tuesdays, come home random days when I could. It was still a little ways away and it was a long commute. If I wanted to come all the way home, it was funny. Our manager at the time lived really close to where I live. and he made the commute every day, and I was like, dude, I don't know how you do that.
You had jungle, right?
Yeah. Where days that he wasn't sleeping in the office, he'd go home. But yeah, so I would make that commute as much as I could. And that was actually one of the things we talked about. Because I remember it's crazy the process of how they like tell you where you're going at the end of spring training. I remember just seeing like, first I looked at the AA roster and I was no, at first I looked at the AAA roster, knew I probably wasn't going to be there. I'm like, all right. Then I looked at the AA roster, just posted on the wall in the locker room like you're in high school if you made the varsity. And I look at the AA and I go, I couldn't find my name, and I was like, really? And I was like, all right, like I guess I must be going to Fort Wayne, like Hyatt. And I looked and it wasn't there. And I almost didn't even look like I was like, maybe they forgot my name. Look at the low A. Sure enough, Lake Elsinore, there was my name, and I was like, dude, I'm 31 at the time. And I was like, I'm going to low A. Ended up having a talk with a couple of the guys in the org, and it made complete sense. They're like, we like you. We don't want to get rid of you. We also don't know what to do with you. We don't want to send you to Fort Wayne, because I was in a weird spot. I hadn't played in years. They wanted me to get my innings in, get my feet wet. They're like, we don't want to send you to Fort Wayne. Like, we figured like we'd send you close to home. That was one of the reasons. So I appreciated that, actually. I could be closer to the family. I got as many innings in there as I could, but they were a little rocky because I was dealing with a little bit of a shoulder impingement at the time before I even ever made it out of there and made it to AA or AAA, which was the plan. Go Lake Elsinore, throw well, you go to AA or AAA, but got hurt. It affected how I was pitching as well. Never made it out of there. Went home to rehab the rest of the year, and then contract expired. The dream didn't exactly go as planned, but not many things in life do. So you just keep going. I actually thought I might be done at that time, but here I am still playing. Yeah, I wasn't.
But I'm assuming your family was finally at least able to see you pitch at that time.
Yeah, they made the trip a couple times too to the stadium, which was pretty cool. I think the times that they came, I didn't pitch, but they watched me. The perks of being in the bullpen, not 100% sure when you're gonna pitch. They watched me like on the computer. My wife hates watching me pitch. She won't watch me. My mom will always watch me pitch. My wife will just, at this point, after trying to watch me pitch, she just lets me give her the rundown how it went after the fact. Or my mom will spill the beans beforehand and tell her how it's going, or whatever. So yeah, she doesn't like to watch me pitch. So I don't blame her. I had some rocky outings when I first came back, so it was tough for me to look back and watch, much less I could imagine for her.
Now, in this time frame, what did pursuits look like? Because you thought you were done again. You have both daughters at this point, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, and they're in the fun years, from what I'm being told. Personalities are developing. You can start to see who they are going to become. I'm assuming because they're young toddlers at that point. They have a little spunk to them, not just potatoes with arms and legs. But I want to know where your head was at, like another dadhood check-in at this point.
Yeah, I'm a little more sentimental probably than most, and every time I would leave, I would get so sad. I remember when I'd leave them, and I knew I wasn't going to see them for an extended period of time. Like, even though they visited me when I was in spring training, like they stayed down Airbnb for a week or whatever, and then when I ended up going to Elsinore, like it worked out perfectly, where I got to see them like throughout the year. But yeah, leaving them would just break my heart every single time. A few days pass, and then you start to grab yourself by the bootstraps, and you're like, all right, like we're gonna get this done. And we've gotten a little bit more used to it because I'll leave, but they know that dad's never gone for that long. And it's funny the way that it's kind of worked out even these past few years. Like with Mexico City, like I signed after spring training into the season. I signed late because I told teams, it's like, hey, I can't afford to go to spring training in Mexico because you don't make money. And it's like, I got to make money. So it was like one of those things where my hands are tied. I had to turn down offers and invites to spring training. Ended up signing late with Mexico City, and then got sick, and then came home for All-Star break. And then I didn't have a team after getting sick and losing my roster spot. And then got to be home for almost 2 weeks, and then signed with the Conspirators. And then the second half of the season, super short. We didn't make playoffs, so I came home and wasn't gone for too long again. I've been fortunate enough to where we haven't gone like that. I did in 24. I went without seeing them for quite a few months, but this past year I was able to see them a little bit more, which was nice.
In 24, that was when you were kind of indie ball team to indie ball team, right?
Yeah.
American Association. Was that also your USPBL stint?
Yes.
That's a crazy one. You had to probably be the oldest player in the history of that league.
I think I was. I was talking to a guy that's there this year, and they get like former big leaguers all the time. Like they'll get like there's a former big leaguer that they just signed and brought in just now. They always have like one or two like older projects just looking for a place. But last year was an interesting year because I was like, you know what? I don't care. Like I'm just going to get innings under my belt. Also, I wanted to transition to a starter. So I didn't do it the smoothest way. I did it mid-season. So I was a 1 inning bullpen guy. I signed late again in the Frontier League because they were the first team to reach out to me. It was actually Bobby Jenks, who unfortunately just passed away, but he was my manager for that short stint. And he was like, hey, I'll offer you a spot right now. He loved the story. He's like, dude, you're throwing noise. Like, come on. So I was a 1 inning guy. And I got to the point I was just like, dude, I don't really like the bullpen. I just got to the point I was like, I want to start. And I remember telling him that there was one thing that was solid on the team. It was starting staff. And I was like, I don't want to mess with that. I'll look for another opportunity. Ended up going to a different team. They're like, hey, can you start on Sunday? I was like, or Saturday or whatever it was. And it was like 3 days from then. I was like, yeah, let's go for it. I'm not built up at all. I was like, first inning, lights out. I was like, dude, all right, let's go. Next inning, hadn't done an up down, I don't know how long. Like already getting gassed in the second. And even with me trying to pace myself, I remember like a hot game. First thing to go was command. Ended up like getting tired, walked the house. I was like, dang it, this is going to be harder than I thought. So it was definitely probably not the smartest way to do it, but at the same time, I don't regret it because I mean, now if you look at those stats, you go, oh, that was a rocky season, but I got the experience I needed. That was my number one goal. It's like, dude, I don't care about any of that right now. I just want to get innings under my belt and I want to develop into a starter. And my goal was to get ready for winter ball because I had a winter ball opportunity in Puerto Rico as a starting pitcher. And that's kind of what transitioned for me to just get those kind of like non-pressure innings in the USPBL, which I loved, by the way. It's kind of that hybrid in between facility training and just going to indie ball, because indie ball is ruthless. You have a bad outing, it's like, hey, we got to get rid of you. And whereas like there, it's like you can get your innings in. They're very development conscious. I got innings in there and I saw a lot of progress. I figured a lot of things out. And then I went and I played winter ball. And then that's where things slowly kind of started to figure themselves out. But yeah, it was an interesting, you look back at that year, I think I was on 3 indie ball teams. I signed, then I asked for my release so I could be a starter. And then I got traded. And then I went to the USPBL to get innings in before winter ball. And then I went and I played winter ball. And yeah, I was all over the place that
year. So 5 total teams in 2024.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Most people would say 5 teams is a career, and you did it in 1 season.
Yeah, it's like one of the perks of like having good stuff to get your foot in the door. It doesn't really mean much of anything, but like it creates intrigue. And that's one thing that I definitely had was the stuff. I was like, in the Frontier as a 1 inning guy, I think my average heater was 97 plus, and I was popping out like 101. And they're like, this guy wants to try to start. Like, all right, like we'll see what does this look like as a starter? And so it created opportunities for me, but the opportunities without performance in leagues like that only get you so far. So it's like, you got to start producing at some point, which I finally feel like now I'm getting to the point where the performance and the stuff are starting to come together. I've relearned how to be a pitcher. Before I quit baseball and I was young, I was the greatest at pitching, but I'm finally starting to figure that out, put it all together, I guess.
You're figuring out that whole pitching thing at 34 years old. No time like the present. And with that, it brings us kind of full circle to where we started. What we covered initially with the first year, we finally have gotten there. I guess that's what happens when you try to cover, what is that, 16 years to a story, but we somehow did it to get you into 2025. What are you looking forward to now, both with baseball and with where you're at in this stage of life as a father and a husband?
Yeah. So in a perfect world, the goal is to get a opportunity to play in a league where I can do well to financially support my family, and then also have them alongside with me, whether that be in the States or overseas in Asia, preferably Japan. Japan would be like making the big leagues for me, in my opinion. I had interest before I had my foot injury this year in Taiwan, which was part of the reason I was pushing to get back so quickly. That on top of, I really wanted my team to make playoffs in Mexico, and we were close. But yeah, I think working my way over to seas, financially supporting the family, and then being able to have them alongside me as much as I can, whether that be in a spot overseas where it's like, hey, we spend a year or two or however many in Japan or wherever, Taiwan, Korea, or the States are like, hey, we don't care about your age because you pitch so well here overseas that we'll sign you and give you a shot to break with big league camp. Like that would be like the dream. But yeah, I think that's kind of what I'm hoping for. Next year, it's nice because it feels like I have a team that wants me back for the first time in quite a while, because I proved to them this guy can be a really good commodity to our team. I had a couple of really good outings in a stint before I hurt my foot with my last team, especially as a starter. So I think having that opportunity next year with them, and then also a desire to, States, overseas. There's so many outlets now, even though the roster is downsized in the States, like playing internationally to me is like really open doors, I guess. And it's exciting because there's a lot of really good opportunities.
And probably create some incredible moments having the family along the way, which I don't want to skip over that point.
Yeah.
I do think that's awesome that you are trying to figure out ways for them to be a part of your journey. So maybe we'll spend a little bit of time on that concept. How important is it for you to share your experiences with them, or have the family share everything together? You
Yeah.
obviously haven't had too much of that opportunity to date, but it sounds like that's something that you're really working towards.
Yeah, for sure. When I'm putting things into perspective, like I remember like the primary reason I'm doing it, and I have these goals is so like it's a duty. One of your duties as a father and a husband is to financially support your family. And if I can do this and, provide them a good life while still being able to like selfishly and unselfishly, like it's important for a husband to be around as well as a father, obviously, in their kid's life. But I want to be around them as much as I can. So if I can financially support and then just be around them, my goal is just to be able to be around them as much as I can. Those are the two most important things with my career, and it helps keep in perspective of like this baseball thing, because selfishly you can get caught up in like wanting to be that pitcher that you're capable of, and you feel like you're so close. You have these opportunities, and it helps prevent falling into a selfish mindset and being like, hey, like the whole reason I'm doing this first and foremost is to give a good life for my family. And if I can do that through the means of something that I've dreamt about my whole life, then that's awesome. Part of the thing is, though, it's like this could be an opportunity to provide for my family in a way like I don't have any opportunities elsewhere, because baseball can be a very lucrative career. Like if you make it to really high levels and then be able to spend a lot of time with your family, as well as if you're able to accomplish and get to a certain level. So that would be the ideal goal. But
If not, I think the experience throughout the way still opens a lot of doors, and it's helped me meet a lot of people in terms of like the next career I want to go down, which is, coaching. So the experience regardless is beneficial. So wherever it takes me, like I'm grateful, and I think it's been super meaningful, the experience. And I don't think that you can replace all of these experiences that I've had in terms of being a coach. It just helps me add things that I can pull from in the future. Like, you're looking to play in Mexico? Yeah, I played in Mexico. Oh, you're pursuing something overseas? I've been there. Winter ball, states. It's like, oh, you took time off from your playing. You had the yips, you had tThe. It's like whatever. It's like I could draw experiences and help other people maybe going through the same thing.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Matt, that really does it for me. I don't know if there's anything else you feel like you really want to get off your chest at this point. We've obviously gone through a lot, but
Yeah.
I know there's so much to the story.
Yeah, no, nothing else to get off my chest. Just it was really good to be able to talk to you. When I was going into this, it was like I get to do a FaceTime and a phone call with a friend of mine that I haven't seen in a while, and the fact that you're going to have a new family coming. I hope that, I know we spent a lot of time talking about myself, which my wife says I love doing.
Well,
uh,
I asked you to, so you have a
yeah,
pass
yeah,
this
yeah.
time.
Yeah, but yeah, I hope I gave you something, if anything, and I hope that you feel comfortable enough to reach out if you do have any more questions about that. And I just want to congratulate you on that, and hopefully I'll be praying for you and the family, for health, and everything goes smooth. And I'm looking forward to hearing more about your journey as well.
Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate that. And I know you are passionate about helping others. So maybe I'll ask one more thing of you. Are there ways that people can get in touch with you if they want to learn more, hear more about your story, or just follow along?
Yeah, I mean, I try to be pretty active on social media. It's a good way to network, as well as, get in touch with a lot of people in the baseball world. I got the Swilly pitching you can follow on Instagram. Yeah, there aren't too many Swillies out there, so if you Google me or you look me up on social media, I'm probably easy to find. I don't even remember my handle name on on X, the platform formerly known as Twitter, but yeah. Probably social media, I try to be as active as I can. And then I got people reaching out and DMing me all the time. And I try to be as open and connect with as many people that way as I can. So, yeah, you just reach out to me that way.
Perfect, man. Thank you. Thank you for opening up today. Thank you for sharing your journey. This has been a great conversation, and I'm excited to see what's to come. And hopefully, everybody else can follow along on Twitter as we hope to get you signed somewhere soon.
Sounds good, my friend.
Yes. Well, to everyone out there, thanks for laying back with us.